We've seen some big economic downgrades from the IMF this week as well. Just on, we'll come back to some of those other container trades, but if we can just stick to the Transpacific, Peter. We're in the midst of contracting season. These are the long-term or the annual contracts. They're normally wrapped up around about now. What's going on? This is where I am. We've got all these US-China tariffs in place, but we're hearing about mass blank sailing, cancelled orders. I'm hearing about people saying they won't pick up goods from port. And then today, well, yesterday, we've heard that Trump is talking about slashing tariffs on China, or at least he's put out an olive branch to try and bring China to the trade talks table. So what strategies are available to shippers and lines in the midst of this? And how have they been approaching these contract negotiations? From my side, I've heard some people have signed some contracts, but lower volumes, if that helps.
I mean, the problem with the current situation is that you can only generalize to a very limited extent, because many of the problems that have been thrown at shippers and importers in the most recent weeks and months basically impact everyone pretty individually. So it's different from one sector to another, and from one company to another, how they actually assess their options and how they go about this. But Mike, I can only concur to what you just said before. I mean, it's a matter of nailing a contract, if possible, on those supply chains where you are absolutely certain that you will be able to move cargo also in the near term and long term future, or at least up to 12 months, right? And with everything else in terms of uncertainty, I mean, if you cannot commit to a minimum quantity on any trade lane, you cannot, of course, enter a binding agreement with any provider, whether that's a forwarder or a carrier directly, right? So it's really tricky to nail that. And then we have seen a lot of contract negotiations basically just coming to a halt because of the lack of clarity and certainty from what will I actually be shipping and from where will those goods come from in the most recent months and quarters. So we've really seen a lot and overly exposing themselves to the spot market, of course, and that's why we also see rates being sensitive to uncertainty like this.
We've seen a lot of those cancelled sailings announced. Are we expecting that to carry on for a few more months, or does that again depend on policy?
I think what we're seeing right now is super interesting. If we take at least at face value what the carriers are announcing right here, right now, because if we look at what they're up to on the Transpac, it's basically about to be peak blanking season once again. If we are just looking a little bit ahead into the early days of May and into half May, we're actually going to see more blank sailings than we see during the Chinese Lunar New Year. So that's definitely one indication of no shipments leaving China to any meaningful extent, right? But at the other end of the world, carriers are super busy deploying capacity on Far East to Mediterranean, Far East to Europe, where we basically now are looking forward to a number of weeks where no blank sailings are announced at all. So we're actually expecting record high capacity being deployed out of Asia, in particular China, into Europe. So it's a little bit fun mix that we're facing here. Will a lot of Chinese goods actually flush or flurry into the space of Europe? We will know in a few weeks.
Yeah, so there's the possibility of dumping. We're not quite sure if lines are following the demand or following the supply at the moment, or are they just trying to work out what's going on? Have you spoken to any about that?
Yeah, I mean, we heard that definitely some shippers have basically abandoned their warehouses in China because they could see that the goods produced for the American markets would be completely off margin once they landed in the US, right? With a tariff barrier of at least 145%, then low margin products would face complete difficulties ending up within the North American market, regardless of the way it would be traveling or whether it would go via, say, Canada, Mexico, something like that. So we have definitely seen some troubling on that, but we have also seen more larger shippers that constantly need, of course, due to their setup with just-in-time supply chains, that they cannot just halt all shipments out of China, even though tariff barriers would incur them to do so from an economic perspective. They simply need to keep the wheels turning. And if their profit margins into the American market are large enough, obviously they will eat into those profits, and they will also seek still to pass on some of those higher prices to their customers. But in the end, they have no, at least short-term alternative to not shipping. So again, getting back to my point, this is very individual from one company to the next and from one sector to the next.